Hey, folks, and welcome to The High Note, a podcast where I interview various composers and talk about their journey. And today I have with me Robina Baker
Barker.
and Barker. Oh, did I spell that wrong? I'm so sorry. I was
Woof,
just going
woof.
to ask you to make sure that I did that. So let me get this correct right now. So that
There we go.
Barrker, right?
Barker. Woof,
There
woof.
we go. And is that better?
That looks so
There
much
we
better.
go. See, and I love these technologies, and I apologize for that.
Oh,
But
don't worry about it.
welcome to the program, and you
Thanks.
are
Thanks.
a amazing composer. I love your music and your tracks. I had the privilege of listening to some of it a while back. I haven't listened as much recently,
I
but
haven't produced much recently because I've been definitely focused in other directions lately. But yeah,
well, owning a software company is and a startup at that is
yeah,
certainly
takes some time.
yes, definitely. So uh, I really want to thank you for taking the time today and joining us here.
Oh, my
Uh,
pleasure.
let's start. Which one am I on? I'm over here. No, I'm trying to get over here. Boom. There we go. Nope, I'm trying to get with guest. There we go. No, I didn't. Okay, I'm in the wrong one. Okay, I'll get these. This is new
Technology.
software, so we're here. Anyways, welcome, and I'd like to start with where your journey began. What got you excited about music? Probably as a kid, you started off doing the lessons,
Without
and
a doubt.
where did it all
Yeah.
start?
Well, it started by being born to professional musicians. Both my parents are violinists. As a matter of fact, my
Oh,
father
wonderful.
was at one time was one of the top five Baroque violinists in the world. So
Ooh,
he's has been long sought after and is instrumental, no pun intended, in setting up the early music school at Bloomington University or Indiana University in Bloomington. So he definitely music has always been a huge part of my world. And I, because it was so much in my face with both of my parents doing this, I went complete opposite direction. It's like, no, I don't want to do music. I don't want to do music. So I went into I went into acting. I went into entrepreneurship. I went to all sorts of things, just kind of denying the whole musician side of me, or at least outwardly. They made me do the piano lessons, of course, and I did the piano lessons, and I struggled through the theory, and doing the practicing was just a drag. Finally, my mom got really tired of pushing me to always be practicing and doing this. She said, "Fine, just stop." I stopped, and instantly I started playing the piano 3 hours a day. It just having that pressure of the lessons taken off of me, I was able to dive in and actually enjoy it as something that I really did love to do. So
hmm
I literally started writing songs from the time I was a little kid, pieces of music, all sorts of stuff, and I would play lots of Elton John music just by ear, learning how to play it, and then
you made it fun. You had fun
I
with
made it
it
fun.
finally.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, so much fun, and yeah, hours down in the studio playing, and it was great fun. And then life went different ways, and I had a modicum of success as an actor, and I had I my little claim to fame is that I was the body reference, the live action model for Princess Jasmine in the movie Aladdin. So
Oh,
this,
wonderful.
yeah, so that was the big thing. It was fantastic, but it gave me some money. So I was able to
Yeah.
I got this nice check, and like, well, what am I going to do with this nice little check? And I went out, and the first thing I did is I bought myself a Roland JV 1000 workstation.
Oh,
I
wow.
so I wanted to get back to my passion, and
hmm
I literally started because that has just a floppy disk on it. So I started recording all of my MIDI onto the floppy disk. And again, long and winding road. I'd written a whole bunch of songs that I thought were very, very precious and wonderful. Because
So,
that's what
just a
you
quick
do.
question.
Yeah.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Um, did you learn other instruments besides piano? Did you like play in high school bands or anything like that? It was just
I
piano.
I was a singer in high school. I was in the jazz choir and that sort of thing. But no, I stayed pretty close to the piano. I did have an
Mhm.
affinity for the violin that I think just came through the genetics, but there was no way I was going to go down that path in that household. So yeah, the
Yeah,
piano was
little competition, you know.
yeah, just a little big shoes to fill.
But did you
But
pick up any through osmosis just to kind of play it for fun or anything? Or
well, I certainly picked up a sense of orchestral music, and ensemble music, strings. That sort of just kind of came to me naturally. Just
naturally, yeah.
that hearing the way things go together, hearing the development, those sorts of things. So a lot of the music that I started playing around with and writing had this, if not classical, but it was, there were instrumentals and they were definitely mood based. These were not pop songs I was writing. I knew I was never going to be a rock star. I figured this was really just for my own enjoyment, was to just play these pieces of music just for me. And
Mhm. You didn't get into the whole, moose hair and spandex, you know.
There may have been some moves, but no, I was never a musical performer. I kept my performing to my acting, and that was the extent of
And
that.
the shower and the mirror in the morning. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the hairbrush, absolutely the hairbrush, without a doubt. There was that. And well, so after having life and doing a whole bunch of different things, and only ever really considering this to be a hobby, I kind of came back to music. Let's say probably about 15, 18 years ago, and I had my keyboard had been sitting in storage, and like the keys got stuck together, and they were also, I just felt like I had been neglecting this whole part of me that was really something that meant something. And I went and I got it fixed, and I'm staring at a nice fixed keyboard, having not played in probably 10 years. And the floppy disk, it's now a very old piece of technology that I knew was at big risk, that all the music that I had ever written was on this little thing, and I needed to get it off. So that's when I started just I got Finale or something and started doing notation. So it's like, at least I can get it into a written down kind of format. And that's when suddenly I started to become aware of DAWs, and I started to become
Hmm.
aware of, wow, wait a minute, you need all these sounds that I were able to do in kind of in this keyboard. Now I can just take it to this huge other level, and all of the strings and stuff that I hear in my head that I want to build into these pieces of music, I can now do that with my computer. And so I really was a kid in a candy store, that explosion of energy of being able to suddenly do all of this. And I learned Cubase, and I really dove in and really started exploring all of this. You Cubase guy, yeah.
I like you is.
Love Cubase. And so I was just taking in all of the courses I could get online, YouTube, and I was learning how to mix and master. And one of the courses I took was like, okay, release an EP. I'd like never done that. I had like never even really shared my music with anybody. I just thought, okay, well, this is just for me. And so, okay, I put myself to the challenge of releasing an EP. And this is where I learned the value of not taking my music so seriously. I was All of these pieces of music were so precious to me, and I just, because they were
I'm
born
an
from
artist.
here. I'm an artiste, and all of this, and really, um, for lack of a better term, just an inflated ego around it. And I don't mean that I was like, oh, I'm the best composer or anything like that, but it was all ego driven. Was like, oh, look what came out. Look what. And I very quickly learned, because I was finally getting out into the world where there were a lot of us, writing our music. And I'm going, well, why am I taking this so seriously? Because it's very stressful to take it very seriously. And I started literally just looking at these, um, at my pieces as kind of like, well, products, like little widgets, as it were, which may sound terrible, but what it was so freeing when I stopped feeling that my music was precious, I started creating like crazy. I started writing so much more. I would be completely involved in the creative process, completely impassioned with the music that I was writing. And then once I was done, I was able to kind of let it go. And if I was able to show it to people and they didn't like it, didn't bother me at all. So it was a huge switch from somebody who was terrified to even share my music, through to that, oh, this is, these are amazing, all the way to, okay, well, I'm learning, and this is a journey. And for all the times that the muse visits me and I'm able to actually produce something, this is amazing, this is fantastic. And all right, none of these are Mozart. Let's just keep on going. Let's just keep
Well,
on
the
going.
thing is, the analogy that a lot of people use is like, so your father was a famous violinist. Mine
Yes.
was is an amazing world class painter, and so if you take it to the canvas, well, okay, the beauty of the DAWs and all the things all the tools that we have to work with, it's just like that. That hey, we have an open palette and we can really create things. The beauty is that okay, I want to change something. You can twist. You can change it. So
And it's a
that
hole you
is
can
I
fall into too.
yeah, well, that's true. But I also think that because of that, that's another reason why you can take one piece of music and then you can
Yes,
you can massage it and do so many different things. That's a little harder to do. I mean, there are some programs you can do that with digitally nowadays, but it's a little harder to do in kind of a visual representation.
absolutely,
Uh,
absolutely. Yeah,
so
and it is a blessing and a curse, because you can very easily just get sucked into that process and constantly be tweaking this. And you know how it is. You tweak one thing and it's a domino effect. And so you can have, especially if you're dealing with orchestral pieces where you may have like 80 to 100 different tracks in there, and it just affects everything. So it really, you have to find that right balance of, okay, at what point do you put the crayons down? At what point do you go, okay, you know what? This is good. This is what it needs to be. Let's move on to the next one, because each piece is going to teach you something different. Each piece is going to move you forward. Uh, and really, it was through all of this that when I learned about sync music, that that more than anything taught me that I needed to be able to produce these things. And I don't mean to produce them in just not caring about them, or not that it's not a creative thing at all. I don't, I'm not trying to anesthetize us into this is just nothing little widgets. I do mean that they are beautiful, fantastic
well,
processes,
you're
creation.
you're a filter and you set a bar of where your filter is, and sometimes you
Yes,
get a little, you get above it but you never go below it, and you're the
exactly,
filter. You're creating that style, or this is your signature, if you will.
exactly.
um and that's your uniqueness that you put out in the world. So
Exactly. Exactly. And that version of you changes as you grow your skills. And if you're only sitting in the same piece for forever, you're limiting where you can grow and expand. So there's so much exploration. I mean, I'm very guilty of having, like, there's this orchestral piece I've literally been working on for 3 years, well, 2 years, but that I'm expecting much higher levels of it for my understanding of how to do orchestral. So I'm really kind of battling my way through this. This isn't a simple instrumental. I shouldn't say simple, but an instrumental with some pads and with some guitars and other things that don't have all of the inflections and the articulations that the orchestral stuff has. And because I was just inundated with with my parents and basically being a kid hanging around the backstage at the Metropolitan Opera all the time, I hear what it should sound like, and it makes me crazy when it doesn't. And it's literally, like, Robina, it probably was good enough. It's good
well,
enough for the vast majority of what's out there. You don't need to be, freaking out about
well
it.
when you think about that, that's a really really important point, because a lot of composers, and you can, especially with time, you're doing these things. So you have layer one, I'm going to say, you string sound, or run,
Yeah,
you play it. Okay, that's great. Layer two, expression. Oh, dynamics. All right, so you're going to get your expression in there. All right. Well, layer three, is the most difficult. And that's where you're going from pizzicato to,
Oh my goodness. Yeah, all the
you're
different,
putting in
yeah,
all the little inflections and the transitions between them to try
exactly.
and,
And then
as a live player, they're doing that naturally through hours and hours of practice. Well,
exactly.
if you're going to emulate that with a DAW, you've got hours and hours of work to do. And
It is.
that's each instrument.
Each instrument, and
And
then if you want it to
that
be,
takes so much time.
and it really it depends what instruments or what BSD package you're using. But another thing is that most of the, even the really good um, sound bases out there, like I'm using Contact, I'm using Abbey Road. All of these are really fantastic, but it still sounds like a DAW. It still sounds electronic to me, unless so you're talking about each layer. Well, I also will double and triple up, like for the violin section. Instead of it just being the violin section, I might have three using different violin instruments, one being like even putting the solo violin all on the same, with the same phrasing, but that just a little bit different sound, so you feel that those layers within the violin section, so it sounds more natural. But this is like, it's pixel pushing. It really is.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Well,
Or it can be, at least when you're learning this.
so at Taxi last year, and you were there
Yeah.
too, and unfortunately I can't go this year, but I hope that you'll say hi to all my friends over there.
Oh,
Uh,
of course.
so I was sitting in on this workshop on writing trailer music, and the guy says, he's talking about that whole concept of layer, and he says, at this point, I don't care if there's 37 trombones and 115 violins.
Oh,
It's what I need to get that. You know,
it's
and I just like
true.
it's
It's
true.
crazy. It's true. It's true. And that's why, it's kind of like, well, all right, so I want to get more prolific. And how many songs do you want to churn out over a year, especially when you're focusing on sync, and both quality and quantity matter.
Mhm.
But when it comes to the orchestrals, I know that they're going to be that. uh, I look forward to when I am well versed enough that I can actually push out an orchestral in just a month or so, as opposed to just the all the way through. It does sound good though. There's something about doing orchestral music that, at least for me, just takes my listening to a whole other level. There's when I listen to it come back, I'm just yeah, I'm in awe of the emotions, that the variety. You've got so many instruments to be able to weave into complex emotions, that it's a head rush. So it's a lot of
Well,
work, but it's a
and
rush.
it's one of the things. So each of the libraries, people go, well, I've got this library, I got that library, and we end up getting, as composers, we get our go-to libraries that we like.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
when I'm composing, and writing, and harmonizing and orchestrating and stuff like that, sometimes I'm less considerate of really, the timbre tone quality. But
Mm,
when you compare a Vienna ensemble library with a BBC library, and Albion and some of these other string libraries, they all are very beautiful libraries, or many of them,
absolutely.
most of
Yeah.
them,
Yeah.
and they all do certain things better than others, or have different collections of articulations. Um, in an orchestral, well, and they're recorded in different places, so they all have a very
Exactly. Different
different
resonance.
sound.
Yeah. Hmm.
And when you're trying to, I say, emulate or come, you as a schooled, an osmosisized, for lack of a
Osmosis.
better word, if that's a word, uh,
It is now.
classical artist. um,
Mhm.
you're trying to get that, okay, I want the soft strings here, and then I want that to come in, and then I want these bitey strings right here to
Yeah,
get that,
yeah,
Bartok
absolutely.
kind of a feel, or whatever it is. Quite often you're going back and forth between the different libraries to get those different timbres. How have you played with that?
I have done. I certainly have mixed libraries. Like I said, I like to layer individual sections. So I'll always layer at least one solo violin in with the first violins and in with the second violin. So, and I might like tweak it off. Like you can do the timing. So just like a tenth of a tenth of a beat after. So it's not doesn't sound so mechanical. Um, uh, Another thing that I've done, and to be honest with you, it's I want to be taking courses in this, and I haven't yet. But some of the workarounds that I've done, whether or not that maybe I might be doing something that people are going to go, oh my god, that's bloody ridiculous, but well, it kind of worked. Is for to get a certain tone when the violins would start, I'd have some violins in there starting with a spiccato or a different kind of articulation than what the typical was. Just again, because you've got a violin section, you're going to have all of these people who are all going to start going in a different way or a different place, even though they're playing the same piece of music. So it all does come down into that layering, and it certainly can become a whole that is far more in depth than it needs to be. So I do have a talent for complicating some things.
Well, and sometimes it's I hear something and there's a library and I'm like, I can't get that. There isn't the articulation someplace to get that. I'm going to pull out some of the trumpet something,
Yeah,
or
exactly.
various strings is there's so many more, but there are
Yes,
also a lot of libraries, so there's a lot. But finding the particular articulation that's going to fill that and that right blend. Some of the libraries actually what they do is they'll record little sections where they've got three instruments or multiple instruments, because you
yeah,
can't get that. You can't emulate that with the Divisi. Like one of the
exactly.
things I really noticed, because if you play one of the tricks uh, is that if you have one live instrument, it
I know
compensates
it
for
makes
like
everything sound.
so many. It makes it just like there's something magical about it.
And
And
so
the
this is the funny thing. I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you.
No, no, go ahead. No, that whole
Here,
concept is so important.
it is, and here I've got violinists for parents, and do you think that I've actually asked them to put in a line or something like that? I haven't. I know that I need to, but yeah, that's I did one not a big orchestral at all, but another piece that I did, which is kind of neoclassical folk, and I done the flute all in just electronic, and I had shared it with a group of people, and I had this one woman just contacted me. She goes, please, can I do the flute for you? And I'm like, of course, are you
Let
kidding?
me
Yeah, because it
let me think
sounds
about it. Okay.
okay.
Let me think about
And
it. Okay.
she not only brought in a classical flute, she had like the a bass flute, I think, or
Oh, those are
she had,
awesome.
she had like three different types of flutes, and
Yeah.
what it did to that piece was astonishing. I had no idea
It puts a
just
soul in
how
it that's so
it
hard to
did.
find.
It changed everything. It changed everything. Yeah. So yeah, it
That's
was a joy
wonderful.
to work with her. And you're right. If you can get just even one authentic instrument in there, it's really going to change it up.
Well, I had part of what I was saying. So I have some beautiful piano sounds. Oh,
Mhm.
they've done a
Oh
really
God,
wonderful
piano sounds.
job. There are so many, and I love to play with the difference between a Steinway and some of these other
Yeah.
Yamahas and so forth. There's so many beautiful piano sounds, and you can enhance them with reverb, and you can make them just like they're just beautiful. It's just
Yeah. Yeah.
this has been a lot of work by a
Yes.
lot of people over many years. It's been a revolution,
Oh
but
yes.
I mentioned to you I recently got a Yamaha C3 Grand in my living room or studio room,
That's very
and
cool.
I set it up with another. Also, I want to set up plug for Studio One because they actually have some pretty good software as
They
well.
do.
But
Yeah.
anyway, so I set that up so I'm playing it, and there's no comparison between the two. There's like they're different instruments. They both sound like pianos,
I know,
but
but it's true,
but
right?
the overtones is the magic key.
I
When
know.
you hit the dampener pedal and you're
Yeah,
playing various chords, it's a completely different sound than anything that you can create in the DAW. It's such a night and
true.
day difference.
I'm not kidding you. I've got an 1883 upright Grand Steinway.
Ooh,
I know, sitting in here, and it's beautiful. I mean, it's obviously it's ancient ivory keys and just beautiful panel. It's stunning. And do you think that because to be able to mic it, I'll never be able to do it in here in the loft with all of the well,
what the
what
hecka
kind of
hecka hecka
interesting
hecka?
sound, the
Oh,
interesting
oh,
resonance.
oh. Resonance. There we go. That's the right
Yeah.
word.
But, yeah, no, I honestly, I really struggled because I do a lot of solo piano work. I mean, because that's how before I played with the DAW, that was how I kind of got my classical-esque, uh, muses out, was through just solo piano. And trying to find what your signature sound is. I'm still on that journey. There's some of the pieces hours and hours auditioning different sounds, and I have the Grand. What was that was
Yep.
the software,
Yep.
the library I was using, and you can just get
That's
right
from
down.
Native Instruments, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah.
If you could just change the different dials for all sorts of different things to try to find that sound, and again, it's a hole you can fall into, but it
Like
wouldn't
like
make
the
me
Wizard of
crazy.
Oz, the guy pulling the levers, he's turning the knobs.
Oh,
Pay
I
no
know.
attention to the man behind the, and
They
you see the
exactly.
smoke coming up. That's your brain
It
on
really
DAW.
is. It really that's your brain on the dot. Yeah, and again, it's about being too perfectionist, trying to find just the right tone, the right sound, the one I hear some people I go, oh, that piano sound, and then I try to figure out how I could get that piano sound, and yeah, good luck with that. But again, it's all a learning process, and it's all part of developing your craft and developing how you write, how you listen, your ear, and yeah, no, it's so expansive. It's incredible.
So you started. Said you started into sync. What was your first? Hey, this idea of sync. Where did that? Where was that little like ding for
Yes.
sync?
So I had been, like I said, consuming all sorts of online courses. And I think amongst that, I came across Bree Noble, and
Yep.
she was having a summit that had to do with revenue or something
Hmm.
for music. And like I said, I honestly didn't really believe that my music had a place out there because it was moody instrumental music, and it wasn't contemporary sounding hip hop or anything like that. And certainly, you get past 50, you're going, well, yeah, it's just not that. Not only has that ship not sailed, I was never really interested in getting on board anyways. But um, when I settle in for this session, I think I actually had joined it to learn about voiceovers because I had my studio, and
Experience. Yep.
I have been an actor, so it was kind of a no brainer I could be doing voiceovers. And so one of the people that she had on there was about voiceovers, but then
Hmm.
I heard somebody talking about sync, and my little head just kind of exploded because didn't matter what genre you produced in, didn't matter how old you were, didn't matter whether you were cool or not. It just mattered. The music was all that mattered. And
You didn't have to go on tour.
didn't have to go on tour, didn't have to worry about gigs, didn't have to worry about fan base building, none of that. I could just produce the music that I'd already been, writing all along. And there was place for that, and that literally, just like I said, that blew my mind, because suddenly I saw potential that I'd never really considered before. And so, without a doubt, that I just jumped in and started taking courses for that. I did Chris Esty and Michael Elsner's Platinum Sync. This was back right when the pandemic hit, and it was extraordinary. Just learning how I could take the music that I was doing and get it out there into TV and film and commercials and influencers, you name it. So that was really, really exciting. And like I said, I suddenly saw potential that I'd never seen before.
So we met at Taxi, and Taxi
Yes.
was a great place to kind of go get as I say, educated,
Yes,
educated
exactly.
on on the world of sync.
Yes.
Uh, Taxi.com for those
Yes.
folks. I do attribute my inspiration and and what I needed to the basics of what I needed to learn to go in that direction, and that's just really a
Oh,
great
without a doubt.
starting pace for everybody.
Without a
uh,
doubt.
and you meet great people. That's where we met,
Yep.
and so forth. So it's been great for relationships and
And
networking and that kind of thing.
And it was great for me. I mean, the first year that I went, we went solely as Trackstage. Um, I guess the little leap between me following Sync and Trackstage is that as I got into Sync, as I started to work towards making some headway in Sync and exploring that as a career, I got so overwhelmed with all the business stuff that I realized I needed a solution. It's a long story short that I'm not going to go into here because this is about the musical journey, but
We're going
that
to come back to that. We're going to
we'll
come
come
back.
back
Go
to it.
ahead, keep going.
But that turned my attention to building the software for sync artists, and so that
Yeah.
really kind of took up all my energy, all my time. And so the first Taxi I went solely as kind of a fact finding. This is where we first met, learning what people needed in a software, kind of vetting whether or not this was a sound idea, so on and so forth. Well, last year I was so jealous because I was there with one of my co-writers, and she's there and she's making all these connections, and she's things are happening for her, and I did not bring in my music or anything. I just showed up to network and to get a sense of what Taxi was. And I was so jealous. And so last year I went like, I'm going to put some music in. Okay, all right, put some music in. Just to be part of it.
And you did all right. You got
I got
recognized.
signed 2 pieces signed to a library.
Oh,
So,
wonderful.
yeah, so that was my first, real, foray into it. Yeah, they picked randomly one of my pieces, which was one of the most
I
harrowing
think it was the
20
one with the flute.
seconds. It
That
was
was
the
the one
one
with the
with the
flute.
flute.
That was
It was the
beautiful.
one with the flute, or one of the ones that I did with this woman with the flute. But yeah, it was a very harrowing 30, 40 seconds, and they were playing it. And I got it was a nice response. It was fine. It was like, okay, you know what, Robina, you did it. All right, you got your music out there. Everybody was listening to it. You didn't die. People didn't like go, oh, everything's fine. And then, like a month later, one of the guys on the panel contacts me and says, "Hey, you know what? I really, really love this. What else have you got?" And he signed 2 of my pieces. So it's
Oh, that's
and
wonderful.
started that relationship. So yeah, Taxi is the real deal. I know a lot of people like to poo-poo the whole, pay to play service kind of stuff, but in all honesty, I think that the reason that you pay to play is legit in this case, because you're learning how to write to briefs. And I think that's an incredibly valuable lesson for musicians to learn when they're approaching sync. So no, I have nothing but positive response for Taxi, and I mean I don't think it's for everybody for forever. I think it's a great place to start.
Yeah, and one of the things that I think is really important, that I knew and I had come to terms with before this, but it really reinforces it, and I think it's really important. Is that's what you were mentioning earlier, where you take your ego out of it, because it is
Exactly.
so subjective. You're
And
going to
what this is
submit to a
saying,
brief,
yeah,
and I used to go, well, I've got something, I'm going to submit it anyways. They say, well, unless it matches the brief, don't send it. And I totally understand that now, because I'm
yeah,
writing, in a very, very contextual space, but I let creativity take over when I'm there. So I can really,
absolutely,
and what,
absolutely.
and the thing that happens sometimes is I sit down to write to a brief, and I go off in a creative, and it's like, it doesn't match it anymore.
Yeah, and
And
that's
so I'm
okay.
like,
It becomes what it
you know,
is. You're not
e-
going to
e-
submit it anymore, but it doesn't mean that it
exactly.
hasn't given it life. All of that's
Exactly.
valid. Yeah.
You found that, but knowing having uh that contextual understanding is I think a really important part of the learning process in writing to briefs, is
It
knowing
really
when you're always when you're on target with it and when you're not.
exactly, and that's what really what I was speaking to when it comes to preciousness. Because we fall in love with our songs for good reason, because we give our hearts to them. And the creative process is intense. It's amazing, and so when you have this fantastic thing that you're so proud of, and you're just thinking about the song, you're not necessarily thinking about, well, what do they want? That, because that's what counts. Actually, it doesn't count how fantastic and wonderful my song is.
Well, but
it's what it's what does that target want? What does
well,
that
and it's
person?
more than that too,
Yeah.
because okay, there have been times when it's like, I know I nailed this brief. This is
Yes.
perfect. It's
Yes.
awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. When other times you didn't, but you're like, okay, it's close.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
I nailed it. But okay, so here's what happens. It goes into queue with 50 other songs from one guy that's pitching, and 10 other people might be pitching 50 songs a piece. It goes into this big thing that somebody's going to listen to, and if it doesn't like catch them
That's right.
on their right mood of what they're feeling and what they're thinking, and that it's a crapshoot either way you look at it.
And
So you can't get emotional about it. You can
no,
just
and
go.
even if it is
You,
the right, even if it is picked,
you just have to keep your bar at that place where you're going to keep writing stuff, and
let it
then
go.
make
Yeah.
sure that you have you find a way to get it out there and stay organized.
Without
So
a doubt. Yeah, I mean, the other thing is, you could, if you're like pitching to a music supervisor, they literally could take your piece and go, this is the right song for this. This is the right, we're going to go with this. And you could take it to the director, and the director might not like it. Or
exactly.
the director might love it, and it still ends up on the cutting room floor, or they decide to change the scene and it goes in a completely different direction. It has nothing
Exactly.
whatsoever to do with the quality of that song. The
So again,
quality
you
of the,
suck. I'm not going to use your tune because it sucks.
and
It
this is
doesn't
true.
suck.
Because if you, at least this is in my experience, is if I focus so much on how precious my song is, and somebody says rejects it or says it sucks, well, wow, that just can explode your whole world. It's like, well, can I even write? Do I even know how to do this? Do I just suck?
Yeah,
Well, so if it's like, okay, this is fantastic. Now it's a product. I'm putting that aside. And if somebody's looking for this, size product that, fits this certain thing that sounds like this, but okay, well, this is a nice little widget here. You can try that. I'm going to focus on something else now. Just really productizing, in other words, all of those beautiful little babies that you have, and recognize that it's not, it's so subjective. It's
you're going to
so,
raise them well.
you're going
Raise
to
your
raise them
babies
well.
well. Speaking of which,
I love
now we're
those.
going to transition over to this amazing software. But
Huh.
before we get there,
Yeah.
I wanted to relate a story that you told in one of your in your little kind of how you got there video that's on the website, which is mytrackstage.com. That's a place that people can start, and
Yes.
then you get into some other long URL when you actually get your account set up and everything. But anyways, so mytrackstage.com. You said in your video, it's like, okay, I went doing this professional thing, and then I said, I need a break. Quote. Okay, I need a break.
Yeah.
And then you got into your music, and you're like, you you missed one important part of the break thing. You didn't say no, which is something I'm learning the hard way, coming from business and 20 years off of music, coming back to music, is that I have this reflex. Oh, I could I could build an app for that. I could start a company. Oh, check
Yeah.
that out.
Yeah. And
What a
then the
great
same
business
people go,
idea.
the same people
And
go, no, let's not do that.
so the next time I want you to work on that NO word, but I'm glad you didn't listen and you built this wonderful software called Trackstage, and now I pass it over and tell me that story.
Okay, so as soon as I got out there, very excited about all of the sync world and how I was going to actually make money doing this, and It's very, very. It's a wake up call, and it's not a fun wake up call. But a lot of people who get into sync just they're hit with the reality of what that it's a business. It really is a business because you're in the film industry, and the film industry is really high stakes, really high. It's high budgets, deadline driven, very big business with a capital B, and so you really do have to have all of your ducks in a row. They're not here to go, oh look, it's a fantastic song, we're going to make you a star. It's
Yeah,
not that at all.
not even close.
Literally, you got to show up with what they need when they need it, with all your ducks in a row, ready to go. And there's a certain amount of preparation that is far beyond just writing the music that you have to have ready to go in order to pitch. And so that is very overwhelming. And so I was like, okay, there's a lot I've got to keep track of. There's metadata, there's PRO registrations, there's rights and splits, and there was just a ton of stuff that I knew I needed to keep track of. And okay, I'm a musician. Yes, I know spreadsheets. I've done spreadsheets. They are great for accounting. They're great for so many things, but it just was not sitting with me to be doing, huge spreadsheets to manage all of my music. So I did kind of set out to try to find what other options there were out there. And I found some catalog programs, and they covered this part, but they didn't have this, or they were missing this, and I couldn't customize it. And so I'm like, all right, well, okay, well, I'll keep most of my stuff there, and then I'll put some stuff here. Like, okay, well, that's frustrating. And then I needed to tag metadata, and I'm like, okay, well, now, oh gosh, I've got to copy paste to be able to do that. All right, that's frustrating. But okay, I found a CRM software, so a customer relationship management software called Pipedrive, which is built for sales, whole sales process. But I was able to customize it. So I thought, okay, well, I can kind of turn this into what I need it to be. So, so literally the product was my song catalog. And then I had like flows, business flows for completing songs or pitching. And I kind of got it working, and it was far from ideal, because it was not set up for musicians at all. It was set up for people and sales teams. But I kind of made it work. Everything was all right. And then I show up one day, log in. It was not a cheap program to be spending subscriptions, a heck of a lot, twice as much as it is for Trackstage. But signing in and finding that they had changed the fields. So instead of being able to copy and paste all my keywords, or copy all my keywords to be able to paste them for pitches, they were not copyable anymore. I now had to export it all to a spreadsheet again, just to copy and paste the keywords and to whenever I needed to use them. And I thought I was going to have a breakdown. I was just like, are you kidding me? I've spent all this time. I don't want to be spending my life doing the admin work. I want to be able to be writing my music. So my husband Scott is a software developer, and he's all along had been asking, well, I'd like to build an app, some kind of an app. I think he was thinking a little app, but no, like I said, I like to complicate things. So I said, I need this. It needs to do 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 this. And so 4 years later, now we've got a software that we're really proud of now. It really is something that just allows everybody to have all of those different balls in one place. You don't have to jump out from this software to tag metadata, and then jump to this software to manage your rights, and then this to pitch. All of it is just in that one place, and it's making a big difference for a lot of people. We're finding a lot more people who are you're able to get into kind of an admin flow where admin's the thing that you always really kind of procrastinate on. You don't want to do it, but people are actually just building catalogs like this, and it's churning up and churning up and churning up. And it's exciting to see people who've got thousands of tracks in there now and are actively pitching them. So it's great.
Yeah, I've been a customer and a fan for a couple years now, and the trick is with any kind of a system like this is disciplining yourself
Yes.
to have a consistent workflow. Where
Precise.
that's the tough thing. I mean, I find as an artist that kind of gets distracted, I'll go in and I'll do a bunch of stuff at once, and
Yep.
then otherwise you know, if I get it into the workflow where, okay, so, a simple example is that when I'm done with a song, I mix down and I put it in the mix down folder. Pretty
Yep.
simple workflow, right?
Yep.
Okay. Well, if you add that next step of where you're going to put it into your, and there's a couple tag things and a couple little processes that are involved with that. So that's just part of my workflow for that. If you can add that to a track stage workflow as it relates to also then
Precisely.
being able to then, um, you're gonna. So while I'm working on something, I'll get an email, and one of my customers or contacts said, "Hey, I need it. Here's a brief of this. Do you have it?" Well, you know, I can quickly then, if I've got it all set up, I can quickly just, okay, I'm going to go over to my Trackstage browser, and then I'm going to go, okay, their contacts already in there, and I can go, oh, this piece of work, and I can just quickly pitch it. I can even have
Exactly.
automated emails so that that business workflow is really simple. He gets what he's asking for. If I have it in my catalog, I don't have a trailerized version of Merry Christmas, but I mean, if you depending on what he's asking for, and and but so if there's the right need and the right match, then you can go through that workflow and it then get back to work, and it
Exactly.
doesn't really disrupt.
And
Um,
the nice thing also is that, I mean, you when you talk about adding that workflow into your mix down, I mean, you can mix your final MP3 or your AIF right into the track stage folder, and then boom, it's now
it
already.
shows up.
You don't have to go and fill this out in a spreadsheet and go, okay, this is my new song. No, you just dragged it in there, or you just put it into that folder, and now you've got it already there, and you're going to instantly see, oh, wait a minute, that needs metadata. Okay, so you know what you have to do. And then, like you said, when you pitch to somebody, you don't have to keep a record of who you pitch to and when, because Trackstage does that for you. You hit that pitch and it's all recorded, and you've got that record. So that's another spreadsheet you don't have to fill out and copy and paste. And so it helps make that workflow a lot easier. And it's complete. So that's the big thing is, you can attach all of your contracts or your split sheets right to your tracks.
Yeah.
You can have your lyrics there. You've got the keyword library. So you've just got all of it. It just makes the yuck much easier.
Yeah. So now if you have, let's say you have you've got an agreement with, you're working with 4 different libraries.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can say, okay, this is associated with this library,
Yes.
and oh, by the way, I have the PDF of
Yeah.
my contract with them. I can attach that to that record,
Yep.
or associated, so that I can quickly reference that if I need to. And
Yep.
one of the other cool things that I haven't tried it yet, but because it's brand new, but I had said, hey, well, do you have something that'll show the waveform, and you did it. So you
That,
added
that did it.
a new
That's
thing with the player, so you can actually see the waveform, which is kind of an important piece, especially if you're doing trailers where you have to really kind of make sure that it's building to the right climax, or
exactly.
that you have enough gain stage, enough
You're not
level.
clicking. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's one of the drags, is that in so is not being able to see that kind of in when iTunes shows up, or if I click on it,
Yeah.
iTunes
Yeah.
is a default, and it's not going to show that in there.
Yeah.
So if
Exactly.
it's going into my track stage folder, now I can just click on that and reference and see that right away
Yep.
directly in the track stage. So you
Yep. And you
guys have
don't
done
have to have.
a wonderful job.
Oh,
And
thanks,
it's
Chris. I'm glad
now
to.
now, it's not just like, a lot of people have built software, but you have, and this is my curiosity to what your other company was, um, because you guys, Scott, kudos, is not just a guy that does programming. He's a pretty amazing software developer.
Very much so.
And
Very much so. He's
you,
very
outside of
talented.
being a very talented musician and composer, you are also a very skilled, communicator. But you've done a great job on the presentation, and that's where a lot of people miss it. It doesn't matter how awesome the software is
If you
if it
can't
isn't
use it.
presented right. you
Yeah,
know, and it's really
exactly.
fun. And I love the hamsters. You make this fun to use. It's just great
All right,
that
that that yeah.
you've made it fun.
Well,
And
because it's the part of your process, right? So might as well make it fun and easy to bop around and yeah, the humor helps. The humor helps because
yes,
sometimes you really need to laugh.
that's what, like Mailchimp. They were like and they nailed it because it's like you think you're all set, and then if you hit that button, it's gonna go out to everybody, thousands of people,
Yes.
however, and they have this little monkey with sweating going like, okay, you know, and
I love it.
that whole sense of humor really,
Yeah.
will draw you into enjoying using the software when you
Yes.
can tap into the emotional side of it. So
Absolutely. Yeah. Professional grade, but with heart.
so now you guys, a software's never done,
No, never
but
done.
at what point are you going to be able to get back now to doing what you originally set out to do, and that is to write and organize your music and push it out there? This is the fire, okay?
You know it. Well, actually, I have finally set up my corner. My workstation is back.
You
My
go to your
keyboard is
corner.
back. Go to your corner. Yes, I'm so excited about it. Yeah, I mean, it's going to take a lot of front end energy to build software, but then once it takes on a life of its own, then it's about you're taking care of your customers at that point. You're not doing that heavy slog. So the time is going to get more and more freed up to do this. And I'm setting September after I get past a few classes that I'm writing for this month and presenting. Once I get past those, then I'm looking forward to diving back in and writing again. Oh, missed it.
Yes.
I missed
Well,
it.
you guys are really a dynamic duo, and you've built some fantastic software. You're really enjoyable, fun people. You're
Hey,
incredibly
oh, you
talented on so many levels. And one of the things that I come back to when I'm talking to a lot of different artists is they're talking, well, maybe I'm not a professional composer because I only do this part time while I'm doing something else to support myself, or I've got another career. And the thing is, we bring that, if we were just doing our art, it would get stale. I think that the fact that most people that
Yeah,
are successful, they're doing something else because they're able to pull in, they get out of a bubble. They don't they're pulling information and thinking and the muscle exercise of doing
yeah.
different things into making their art better.
Without
And
a doubt, every experience that you have it's affecting you in some way, shape, or form. I mean, even the most mundane things, there's going to be something that seeps in that adds a layer to who you are. And whenever you sit down at your keyboard or at your guitar or whenever you're creating your blank canvas, you're bringing in those extra layers as part of who you are, and that's going to affect what you produce. And it's all about the human experience, isn't it? And just communicating that.
well, yeah, this human experience, we'll see music and vibrations that all kind of connects to the universe and
Oh, in a big way.
all this.
In a
Yeah, this is a
big way.
whole, that's a
That's a whole
oh,
other podcast.
yeah, let's look underneath that hood. Yeah. But
Yeah.
I want to kind of get into a little rapid fire stuff. Who, as an artist, now you said your father and your parents, your mother and father, they influenced you with music. But who was your biggest inspiration outside of your parents?
Okay, so I mean, for sure, when I was younger, it was Elton John and Queen. Those were my big inspirations then, and Supertramp. I think those are the ones that really kind of stood out to me. But it certainly has evolved over time.
That's your generation. Yeah,
It
that's a
is my
coming of
generation.
age generation
Without a
right
doubt,
there.
but Elton John specifically because of the piano, and really, like I said, I spent so much time trying to figure out all of his music, and Billy Joel as well, trying to just. So I certainly a lot of my early music has tones of Supertramp, Elton John, and some Howard Jones as well, also my generation. But recently, honestly, as I've been moving more into sync and into what scoring is like, I have my current passion is a composer by the name of Rob Simonson. I
Hmm.
His music just I can instantly recognize it in the movie. I'm like, oh wait a minute, this is Rob Simonson. Like, sure enough, it is. And there's something about his blending of very modern instrumentation with some just, I don't know, there's just some fundamental melodic stuff that he does that and with piano, bringing in the piano, that's, yeah, I could listen to him all day long.
Well, that's, I mean, it sounds like he's one of the hardest thing that I found for composers to do is to not only when you like scoring to a picture, you're going to go,
Yes.
okay, I'm creating a palette for this picture.
Yes.
And you create the palette for the picture. Then the next step is, okay, I'm still going to put me in there. Okay, not
Yes. Yeah.
necessarily intentionally, but you are the filter.
Of course.
So if and the example I use is with John Williams.
Hmm.
You can listen and you go, that's John Williams. You may
Absolutely.
not know what movie it's for, but then if you listen and you see the difference between Jaws and Star Wars, there's a big
Exactly.
difference.
Yes.
But they still sound like John Williams, and each
Yep.
movie has its own world,
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
that's that tricky part that I think we all strive for as composers. So that it sounds like you're identifying with the right people to make that choice or to make those decisions and influence and grow down the journey. So what's your favorite string library?
Oh my gosh, it's been so long. I think, well, I got the BBC one that I've been playing. I had the Albion, which I like the Albion to rough in a to rough in a score. So, like, because it's big groups of instruments, and then I
Ensemble
will,
patches.
you got it,
Yeah,
and then I'll
exactly.
take it into the BBC to kind of separate it and then go utterly crazy, as I mentioned earlier.
Yeah. Oh, I like the BBC. Unfortunately, it doesn't have all the articulations that I want.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't,
Uh,
and yeah, that gets a little bit limiting at times, and certainly, you really just kind of dive into that and, fake the articulations.
so favorite DAWs, Cubase, but what others have you played with?
The only other one that I was what I learned on. I learned on Pro Tools.
Yeah.
So that was kind of where I kept my teeth. I have looked at Ableton, and it looks fascinating. But it seems to be a completely different animal. Seems to be approaching it completely differently than
Yeah.
how I learned with Pro Tools, and but yeah. So once I learned Cubase, I'd found my home. I did research a lot before I settled on Cubase. When I knew that I wanted to buy a DAW, I said, well, what kind of music do I want to do? And I was really thinking I want to do scoring, and that it consistently, it was the composers that do the scoring that were pointing to Cubase, and it was more the live artists that were pointing to Ableton. So it was, yeah, so that made my decision for me. And I haven't
Well,
dreaded it for a minute. I love Cubase.
yeah. Well, it seems like Cubase, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Cubase seems to be really they're really going after that scoring market.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah. They've
a
got a lot
little
of
bit
tools to.
Yeah, a little bit with Logic, but Logic is going a little bit more for a lower common denominator because they're connecting more with people that are on the platform, the beat makers and other
You got
different
it. You got it.
markets.
Yeah, it's more accessible. Yeah, it's more accessible to a wider range of composers,
And
artists.
then Studio One is connecting
Yeah, I
on a
haven't.
different level because one of the things that I found is that they connect with my Presonus mixer. So all
Oh
and
yeah,
and
right.
a touch
Well, yeah,
touch sensitive. So they've created this integration between
the
their
hardware.
mixing
Hmm.
hardware, and then they've and
Yes.
then they've they've done a pretty good job of connecting on the other levels for being able to sync with
Yeah.
picture and everything. I still
Yeah.
haven't found where everything is, but it's a pretty impressive software as well. Did
I've
have
been
you ever
pretty
you
impressed.
ever like go ahead?
Oh, with just some of the hardware peripherals that Steinberg offers for Cubase as well. I played with some of those, but yeah, I was looking at some of the beat pads and stuff, going, "Oh, wouldn't that be really fun?" But yeah, I haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah, I was hoping they had two things in kind of the history of Cubase that I really liked. One was they had that Rocket service that was you were trying to it allowed you to kind of connect with other people. It died unfortunately, but then the
Mm.
other is when Yamaha bought Steinberg. I was really excited to that their mixers were going to be fully integrated, but they didn't quite get to the same level that Presonus did, and they're great audio interfaces, but they didn't quite get to that extra level of all the goodies and the
Level.
and the integrations, which was
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
So where do you see yourself in 5 years with your
Okay,
music?
so in 5 years, I see
This is not a
Trackstage
job
as
interview.
taking my world, taking taking care of business for me, and absolutely, I certainly, I mean, I see myself as a mix of a lot of writing, being in the studio, producing music. Um, Learning how, I mean, in 5 years, I'd like to be scoring, doing some scoring as well, but also balancing that with, I mean, I live in one of the most beautiful places on the planet. So balancing that with lots of outdoors, and I love being out on the water, love being in nature. And so having that, everything is so techno screen focused. Even my music is now screen focused. And so balancing in 5 years, being able to balance my time with a lot more screen free time.
Well, that's interesting. Are you Mac or PC?
Mac.
Mac.
Scott's
So
PC guy.
yeah. So well, the thing is, they have the new immersive head gear and stuff. And we have a lot going on with artificial intelligence, right?
That we
So
do.
this is kind of that. Oh my gosh! I played with a new tool this last week, and I created a. I don't want to say I created, but I
Yes.
directed the AI to create a piece. It took me maybe 10 minutes, and most of it was just trying to figure out what to click. And a simple little prompt created this amazing 2.5 minute piece.
Yeah.
Amazing. I
Yep.
mean, I know it's like, we were talking about the nuance of trying to create some of the dynamics and those kinds of things. It was really good at the dynamics part of
Now
it. And
that's
and
my
and
hope.
I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my God, that in some ways I felt a little bit discouraged in that somebody's going to be able to say, well, okay, I just here's the scene, and I want to create music for me, and it goes boop, and it's done. And there will be some of that,
There will be a
but
lot of that, I'm sure. I actually think, not that I have a crystal ball, but my guess is that, if you're writing music for royalty-free libraries, or if you're writing for, just consumers, influencers, those kinds of things, then I think, yeah, you're in trouble. I think AI is going to do that for people very easily. But I mean, certainly based on what we're seeing as far as the actors and writers strikes and how they worked into their contracts a lot of AI protections, that's going to I believe that's going to kind of protect the film and the television realm from AI completely taking over composers, because it can't be copyright written. So again, big business, right? Film, big business, TV's big business, and to have not be able to protect their IP, as it were, what their programs, their shows are, and that they could be just their songs could be used anywhere. I think that is probably going to keep musicians working. I think it'll be a big vetting process. I think we're going to get a lot of the chaff from the wheat, as it were. But it is all evolution. And my big hope is that instead of me doing all those little articulations and putting everything, squeaking things, a tenth of a beat off and things like that, that I'll be able to have an AI that I can fine tune to my ears to say, okay, run. All right, I have written this. Now run it through and do the articulations for me.
Just
that would be my hope.
plug,
That would-
just plug it into your neural link, and
Yes, maybe that's where we're going to be in 5 years. Who knows?
well, in some ways it's exciting because there are some great tools. I played with Scalar and some of the other plugins that allow you to you know they're tools, and if you learn them like any
That's
tool, you can
yeah,
use it to your advantage.
yeah.
But it's it is just like they could, like, well, they say that they said that disco was going to kill live music, and in the
Yeah.
end it
It, we,
actually created a boom for live
and I
music.
think that, and I think, for instance, once upon a time, people are drawing things or painting things, and then along comes photography. Okay, well, that is a huge threat to that. Well, people still paint and draw through photography, and then it evolved to graphic design, which is all done on the computer. Oh well, that's going to take away from photography. That's going to no, we still have photography, and we still have painting and drawing. I think it widens things. It certainly it ultimately, I believe, and maybe I'm being naive, but ultimately I believe that if you are delivering something of quality that speaks to somebody, that to a listener, to a viewer, to an audience, that connects with them on some level, that's going to beat out any other tools. It's how do you communicate to that person that value. Now, like I said, for people who need something quick, and it's not about soul or not about art, it's just about getting the job done, then I think AI is going to take a lot of those jobs away. But I think there'll always be room for artists.
Yeah, well, they kind of said the same thing about symphonic music. Now, symphonic music, it was like everything in its day. It
That's right.
was
Yep.
That's all they had, and
Yep.
that worked, and that was beautiful.
Yep.
But we have a broader population, broader interests and cultures and so forth. But I think that uh, and I'm curious to what you think about the. I think that people are going to start to kind of notice the difference, just like you can notice the difference between uh, you know, true classical music that's
Mhm.
played by artists that spend a
Yep.
lifetime learning how to do that and put themselves into it, and a group of them together playing live. There's something very distinct about that versus something that can be generated by an artificial intelligence. And because of that, once people can, right now it's like, oh, I can't tell the difference, but then teach them how to listen a little closer, and they go, oh, okay. And it just like we become more sensitive to, we know the difference
Yeah.
between some of these libraries because we're training our ears to listen. And I think as people become more aware of the difference between artificial intelligence music and that created by an artist. Now, again, you're right. I think we're all going to need to up our game and learn more. Okay, there's going to be a need to really hone our skills, because we can't just get by with what artificial intelligence can do. We have to do something unique and put something very expressive into it, human, if you will.
It
But
is.
I think they're gonna I think they're gonna become more aware, and be able to separate that difference.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I mean, it just we've lived through the evolution of guitars into synthesizers, and synthesizers into EDM, and now EDM. We're moving it then now broad electronic orchestral, and some people prefer the sound of an electronic orchestral versus a real orchestral. I think if we are worried about AI, it comes from a scarcity mindset. We think that there is a limited amount of ears, a limited amount of usage,
Oh,
a limited.
she's doing the heart. Look at the
I,
heart.
but,
I love my music.
really love my music.
Don't
But
take it away from me.
yeah, but I don't believe that it's that limited. I think that the audience expands. I mean, you think how many genres we had when we were kids. You had rock, you had
Yeah.
country, you had jazz. Well, how many hundreds of genres right now are legitimate? There's room. I believe that there's room. Now, does that mean that we're going to be more watered down, that we're not going to have like major, people being major stars and like they used to be? Well, we're already seeing that. We have variety that takes over in its place.
Yeah.
So It's yeah.
I absolutely love uh, the hybrid world because I love the traditional classical music. I come from more of a jazz and blues R&B background. I was a professional musician for many years. That was my niche and where I get feel groovy about music. But I also love the world of synthesis and the things that you can do with that combination of blending those
Absolutely.
synthesizer sounds with the orchestral, and
Think
it's
about
kind
this.
of
This is cool, right? This is cool.
yeah,
This is a new tool.
it's
There's
like
a lot of stuff. Yeah.
you just have more fun with it,
Yeah.
and I guess and I hope you feel the same way that even if artificial intelligence takes over the world of music, I'm still going to do it because I love
Exactly.
it. And that's
Exactly.
why I think that will always be the difference
We're always going to
when
be
you,
creators. We are. We're just going to have different palettes to use. Yeah, that's my take on it. We'll figure it out. We always have.
yeah, well, and you are quite the composer in the software vein, like that's a creative space too. You're just working with different things.
You
So,
got it.
well, thank you so much for spending
Thanks,
your
Chris.
time with me today,
My
and
pleasure.
I wish you the best with the Trackstage software.
Thank you.
And if I think you'll even give me a link, and I'll put the link in the bottom because people can
Absolutely.
find out about that. And then I really hope you can get things to slow down, well, pick up and slow down at the same time, so that you can actually take your music career to that next level and really
Yeah,
kind of develop your catalog. And at 92 maybe you'll start getting awards like our famous John Williams, and
right? There's plenty of
and get
time.
out there. There's plenty of time. Well, 92 is going to be young by the time we get there because there's going to be
Of course. Yes, that's right.
plenty of medical
We'll all be
advancements.
pickled.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be don't get me started on that whole thing there. But thank you so much. I appreciate
Thank you,
folks
Chris.
spending their time with us today on the high note. And let's see, did I put that in there? Oh, I'm going to put that little thingy back in there. Where's the thing in there? Show it. Boof to do. There we go.
Whoop-de-doo.
Boom. All the things you do. And remember, folks, please be sharp and always end up on a high note. Thank you,
Woo!
Robina. I
Thanks,
really
Chris.
appreciate you being here. Give Scott a big hug.
Will
I
do.
love what you guys are doing, and we'll see you next time on the high note. Thank you so
Sounds
much.
great. Take care.